Once a child is brought into foster care, the worker must complete court documents and make multiple court appearances. Because we do not have foster families in Caroline County, and I shouldn't say we don't have a lot. I can't tell you that we don't have any. But because of that, our foster care worker has to place the children throughout the state. I myself have placed 3 children in Poquoson. And I don't know if you guys know where that is, but that's in the Tidewater area. So that's leaving from Caroline County, going to the Tidewater area to place 3 children. When children are in foster care, they must be seen every 30 days in the home with the foster parent. That means that the worker has to travel after hours in order to see the children after school. If the children aren't brought into care, but the family still needs to be monitored by our department, the workers will open a CPS ongoing case. Now, depending on the severity of the risk of harm to the child, the worker has to visit the family 3 to 4 times per month. Referrals need to be made, and the worker is responsible for monitoring the family's compliance, ensuring the safety and well-being of all of the children, and addressing any safety concerns in the home. The workers must document everything that they do, everything that they say, every phone call, every fax, every letter. I'm before you all today to ask that you please consider approving additional staff for the Department of Social Services so that we can provide the quality of services that the citizens of this great county deserve. I thank you.
Thank you.
Now, do y'all have any questions?
Questions? Well, first of all, you're saying these 2 positions, one would be in Child Protective Services and the other would be in the foster care program?
Actually, if I may, one would be in the Family Services Unit, which encompasses CPS ongoing foster care, adoption. We have child care and view on that side, and then one would be in the services unit.
Okay.
I'm sorry, the benefits unit.
Okay.
One for each unit.
Okay. Questions? Mr. Black? Mr. Seeley? Well, let me save you for last since you're on the Social Services Board. Mr. Underwood?
Yes, Ms. Tyree, can you just discuss for me the number of cases? I know you said right now each case worker is carrying 21 and they should actually carry 12. Is that correct?
That's for the that's for the Child Protective.
For Child Protective?
Yes, sir. The Child Welfare League of America recommends that a child welfare worker carries an average of 12 cases. Our workers right now, including our foster care worker, have 21 cases on average.
Has that increased over the last couple of years, or has it remained the same, basically?
I'll give that to Ms. Tyree since I'm there.
Yes, it has, but it hasn't been a huge increase. However, what we've seen is the severity of the type of referrals we're getting is much, much more severe. We used to see a lot of things like when people were going through a divorce, they would call and make reports on one another, and they were not necessarily valid. But now we are seeing just very, very serious ones, a lot of drug usage in the county relating to it, a lot of physical injuries that we didn't previously have.
So basically, you were already behind the 8 ball in terms of what you were doing in terms of services, and now with the severity of the cases that are coming in, it's even taking more time from what you were doing. So
yes,
caseload in terms of time may have increased, actually, if you look at the amount of time needed. Correct? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tyree, I know that at one time there was at least the directors from the various counties around us. They would talk about the issues and what have you. My question is, do we see this happening in Caroline County to a greater extent than you do in other counties? To be honest with you, and the reason I ask this question is because I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed from the standpoint that Caroline County, we have tried to approve developments and other things that are going to help us to improve Caroline County rather than bringing it down. And what you're telling me is that the issues have increased to such an extent that
well, there are a couple
we're going backwards rather than forward.
Well, there are a couple things. With the benefits side, I think it's really the economy has caused that. The Child Protective Services and then the CSA as well, that has nothing to do with income. Anybody can be involved in beating their or abusing their children.
But doesn't it have to do, I mean, it has to do with something. It has to do with either the parenting skills in the homes are not up to par, whether there are other issues that are taking place in the county. I'm a firm believer that the people and the children in Caroline County are no worse than they are in other counties. The fact we're smaller, and so that may have an impact, but they are no worse than anybody else. And from what I'm hearing tonight is the fact that it appears that on the surface that Caroline County has a major issue with child abuse and adult abuse and all those other issues that we've talked about.
Mr. Akers, if I may, I have a worker here, Jenny Ibanez. What I asked Jenny to do is kind of talk to some of the other localities to see what their staffing numbers look like. We didn't want to come to you all blind.
That's more the problem.
I honestly don't. And you had mentioned something regarding Caroline County in reference to other counties.
Yes.
Well, that's the purpose of CPS ongoing, because we have a worker right now. If any of you were to call and make a report, you would have either me, Ms. Walsh, or myself responding to your call. That's the extent of the CPS unit. We received 4 calls last week. I know that Ms. Pollard expressed the work involved in a CPS case. So let's say, for instance, we open an investigation and the child can remain in the home, because under policy, we want that child to remain in the home and provide services because it's the least restrictive and the least expensive thing to do. Cost aside, we do want to follow policy. So after, let's say, I come into an investigation for sexual abuse or physical abuse, we then have to transfer the case to an ongoing worker, and that's the worker that will go to the home, assess the situation, continue to work with the family, make sure the family gets services that they need. Well, unfortunately, because we had 2 CPS workers that also dedicate 1 day per week to intake, which, for instance, today, before I left to respond, today's my intake day, I had 3 referrals. Okay, so that means 3 reports of abuse or neglect. They each take approximately an hour. I have to go and look them up on Spider. I have to put all that information in, determine whatever, if that's something that's going to be responded to, which then I responded out with deputies. So the whole purpose of getting another worker is to secure an ongoing position so that that can be avoided. So those more serious cases where a child could have potentially been protected by our agency by having an ongoing worker, they're not receiving those services because we're receiving so much. And if I could genuinely and truly express to you how many hours that we put in and how much we care about this county, and unfortunately, we're not able to really do our jobs as we should because it's managing fires. It's going to respond to injuries, to get pictures, to then respond to the home. Sometimes there's 7 people to 10 people in the home, which means each child needs to be interviewed. After that child's interviewed, I need to go back to my office to do a safety assessment, which takes time, a risk assessment, and then put all the documentation into a form, which, and then to make a disposition, not to mention make referrals to services, talk to the GAL, talk to the courts. There's a lot of work involved, and ultimately what we want to do, we want to reduce that level of risk to the child. We want to make sure that Caroline County is looked upon as a great agency with diligent workers, and unfortunately, because we're so understaffed and we're so undermanned, we're not seen as a functioning agency like we should be seen.
And I really wasn't questioning the fact of the need for the additional personnel. I am just concerned about the increase of child abuse and adult abuse in the county. That is my issue.
Right.
I'm not questioning.
I don't believe it's worse in Caroline than anywhere else.
And that was the point I was trying to make.
But
Have we looked at that? Have we talked to anybody to see if it's happening?
It increases in
All over.
areas.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially with the economy.
And I think that's the reality is because of the economy, because of built-in frustrations because of the economy, because we're not providing enough jobs to get other people, in a better position, it's probably gone up all over.
All over the state.
And it's not just the state.
Can we
it's-
find out?
And
I mean, can we talk to the other counties?
Sir, if
I
I
know, well,
may-
years ago, again, it's been a while since I served on the Social Services Board, but I do know at one time they did have meetings with other groups.
Well, we still meet with the the directors
Okay.
of the planning district still do meet,
Okay,
and I have
that's
been
what I was thinking.
involved, and they are all experienced.
So they're having the same
Oh,
problems
yes.
that we are? Okay.
Oh, yes.
We're
It's
not unique. That was my concern, is if we were unique from other counties, what is happening in Caroline County
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not happening in Spotsylvania or King George or Stafford County?
We were-
That's what I wanted to.
That was a good, that was a good line of
Actually-
question, and I don't think we're unique in that sense.
Actually, we were unique in our low numbers.
Right.
And we feel that a lot of that was some of the staff we've had that really did not do what they should have done with these referrals that were given.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me ask Mr. Taylor, he's got a couple of questions, and then we'll
Yeah.
kind of get to the meat of the issue.
Again, thank you for being here. Just a couple of questions. How is the turnover rate? Is the turnover rate an issue with the agency in Carlisle?
It has been a issue in the services unit for some time. I feel that we have a stable staff right now. I can't speak for these ladies, whether or not they're going anywhere, but I feel like we've got a good handle on some of our issues that have caused the turnover in the past. Eligibility has been pretty stable. Most of our turnover, as you know, was caused by several deaths we had, but that has always been pretty stable.
Okay, and one other question. How is your salary in comparison to other areas? Or is that an issue?
I would say it's an issue, yes.
Yeah. And the reason I ask those, and I
If you
pretty
look
much-
at the planning district plus Hanover's, the ones that immediately border us, yes, it is a big issue. I think a lot of the people that stay with us don't stay with us because of our salary. They stay for other reasons. I know we have a lot of Caroline residents working there that don't want to commute.
And I ask those two questions because, and certainly I have no problem with the positions personally that you're asking for. I served on the Social Services Board for quite a while, and I understand, the issues that you're faced with. But I do think that, not now, obviously this is not budget time, but certainly that's something that has for a long time needed to be addressed. And we've tried to do that in some instances, but maybe we need to look at that as a means too. If you can keep good people and, keep your turnover down and you can be competitive, then you don't train people to go somewhere else. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, Ms. Tyree, I can say for sure that overworked and underpaid is a formula for turnover.
Yes, it is.
I mean, we all understand that. Was your position, you were the assistant before?
Yes. And I plan to be the assistant again. I did not apply to be the director.
Okay, so your position, your old position was never filled?
No, I'm filling both right now.
Overworked and underpaid, okay. All right, we actually did discuss this during the budget, and I don't think it was recommended at the time for whatever reason. And we were trying to discuss it again. I'm glad you brought it back here. But Mr. Seeley, give us whatever insight you have into this now from the board member perspective.
Let me bring you up to speed, is that the director has retired. We are in the process of actually, we have advertised, we have applications for a new director. Mrs. Tyree is actually filling in until we hire the new director, which should probably be in another 4 or 5 weeks. So that's in progress. The issues that you see before us are issues that we've talked about, and for the other board members, we have almost an entirely new social services board from the community. I think we have one member that's been there more than 3 years other than myself, which has also caused some...
Please sit down, yes, I'm sorry.
A lot of discussion with the new members of what's going on, caseloads. We've actually been meeting monthly for the last year to try to get our arms around some of the issues that we've got, the increased caseloads, some of the other, as we talked about with the Child Protective Services cases, have been very complicated and difficult. I think we're in the process of now of building a new staff. As you can see, we have a number of new employees, I think, that have done a phenomenal job of cleaning up some of the backlog, and I know that they need help in moving forward. We've had some folks that we've hired part-time and we've paid overtime, but you can't do that for forever either. So with all that in mind, are there any other questions from the board? If not, I'd like to make a motion that we actually fulfill the two positions requested by the Department of Social Services for staffing.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Blackman,
Well, did you-
Mr. Blackman, the second. So the motion was made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Black. And ladies, trust me, we all want to help you. Just let me take care of a couple of little minor details, like how do we pay for this? So, Mr. Cully, do you have a recommendation?
Second issue. There is a second issue.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, but I mean, his first one was to hire the two people, right?
Before we can vote on that, though, we do have a hiring freeze that we need to go back and discuss.
I thought we got rid of the hiring freeze.
And that's my question, but you said, I didn't know whether we,
Otherwise, we can't approve it.
Yeah, we approved the hiring freeze, and then the next meeting, we got rid of the hiring freeze.
Right.
And your motion would be to add these two positions, so
Exactly, it's to add two.
We'll make sure.
Right. But, yeah, we had the hiring freeze on right at the budget time,
Yeah,
and then we got rid of it for whatever other reason.
make sure we're in order. That's-
Mr. Cully, and this discussion on the motion to hire the two, we just need to figure out, we'd love to say, yes, we're going to hire them, but if we can't pay for them, that's definitely a formula for turnover when you don't get a paycheck.
Mr. Cully, wasn't this built into the budget initially?
this was, they had originally requested 4 employees in the budget, and I recommended 2. But by the last work session, the board recommended that we hold those for now. And that money was removed from the budget, so the only place it could come from would be from the fund balance at this time. But yeah, we did recognize the need that they were struggling last year and recommended two employees.
But if the money was removed from the budget, it went into the fund balance,
Went into the fund balance.
right? We didn't spend that money on something else, did we?
No, sir. We lowered the revenue that we expected from the state and lowered the expense line for the transfer to social services. So I mean, it's technically got to come from the fund balance, and then we will get some reimbursement back because it qualifies for state reimbursement. So it's not a 100% local.
The local share is 68,332, but we got to pay 92,000 to get our 68 back.
Right, that'd be for the whole year as well.
That's the
So-
whole year,
So we're
yeah.
already, by the time we hire, probably be, I would imagine,
I
close to
did it
January.
on,
But your fiscal year started last week, right? Because you're in October?
No, they're on
No,
May.
ours starts June 1st.
June,
Oh, that's
May
right.
30th.
I knew it was something
Yeah.
unique.
I estimated from December 1st, by the time we go through the advertising, the total cost for the two would be $53,865. The local share of that would be $39,860 for the balance of the current fiscal year. The
Same.
$92,340 would be for an entire year.
That'll be next year's budget when we talk
Right.
about it. There's an 80-20, right? State
No.
pays 80?
No.
What is
This is, the state is only paying, actually, it's federal dollars, it's only 26%.
Okay, so 74-26.
Yeah.
Federal
Most of our employees are 85% reimbursable, but once you run out of that money, you go to
Right,
the
let me-
26% money.
Are we going to get the federal money? That's not your question. That's a whole nother,
What we have been told thus far is that there is a balance that is going to cover us on that. But your guess is as good as mine on this federal budget issue.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, also, in what in the caseloads that we don't cover, what we're going to lose is
Right.
going to start to be an issue.
And that was a point that she made very well, in that
Right.
we'll start getting fined and penalized. And
Right.
it's not really an investment, but if you look at what you're going to lose on one hand versus what you put in,
Or what we'll have to pay locally because we
we're
lose.
ready to carry the motion, I think. Any other discussion? All in favor of funding the two social services positions for this fiscal year, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
ladies.
cannot express enough our thanks, as I'm sure our staff feels the same way.
We appreciate
This
it.
will go a long way with our employee morale
Well-
and serving the citizens.
And you got plexiglass too, so.
That's right.
We appreciate
And
your
I
work
did a
and your
wonderful
service.
presentation to get that.
I wish they were all like that. Thank you, ladies. You have a good day.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break till about 7:35, 15 minutes. All right, we will reconvene. We've taken care of everything up to 7:30 public comments. So at this point in time, we have one public hearing, which is a rezoning. If anyone would like to speak on any subject that is not that particular public hearing, now is the time to do so. And if you would like to speak, please come to the podium, state your name and just your voting district, no addresses, and we will be happy to give you your 3 minutes time. So at this time, is there anyone who would like to speak with respect to public comments? Is there anyone who would like to speak for public comments? Are you part of the rezoning? No. Yes, then come right ahead, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Esty Newby Howard, and I am in the Mattapony district. I'm here tonight just to bring awareness to an event. We have an event that's it's actually scheduled for October the 16th. And this event is to just bring awareness to violence. And the name of the event is Caroline County Community Engagement and Sharing Futures Without Violence. And this is actually a partnership, and it's a partnership with the Caroline Alliance Against Violence, along with the Victim Witness Assistance Program. I'd heard earlier someone talk about the violence and spoke about how do you deal with that violence. And I think it actually starts with conversations, having those uncomfortable conversations that are totally necessary, because oftentimes it starts with the individual, and then the individuals actually makes up the community. So this is an event. We will have excellent speakers. We will have individuals from the community providing, live experiences, stories. We also will have food. It's going to also be a silent auction, as well as some other activities. And again, this is actually bring awareness to violence, in particular domestic violence, because October is domestic violence awareness. So this is an invitation for the community as well as the board members to please, if you don't have anything planned, I know your schedule is probably very busy, but we certainly would like for you to attend this event.
Can you, before you leave, can you give us a little more detail? Where is it and what time?
I actually have flyers.
We would be happy to take your flyers and help advertise.
Absolutely. The event is going to be at the Bowling Green Town Hall. It's 5 to 7, as I stated, on October the 16th.
Okay, 5 to 7, Bowling Green Town Hall or Bowling Green Event Center, whatever they call it now.
That is correct.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Howard, and thank you in the Mattapony District.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So can I leave the...
Give them to Mr. Parton. Do you have anything electronic?
Yes, sir.
If you would, Mr. Parton, do you have a business card? Oh, okay, you work for Victim Assistance Program, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you can get Mr. Parton that program electronically, we will post it on our website.
Okay.
And that'll give you a little more help. We have it already? Okay, we'll put it on our website then to help out.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Is there anyone else who would like to speak as part of the public comment section? Are there any of the scouts who are trying to get their merit badge in communications that would like to speak? Could have been extra credit. Okay, no extra credit for the scouts? All right, well, we do thank you for being here. Hearing no more comments, we'll declare public comment section to be closed. And we will move to our public hearings. Mr. Fincham, RZ 05-2012.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, your first and only public hearing tonight is W&F Partners 2, LLC, owner and applicant, requesting a rezoning from rural preservation with a density of 1 dwelling unit per 10 acres of land to B1 business with no specified density on tax map 82-14A, which contains approximately 65.58 acres, and tax map 82-A-171, which contains approximately 63.12 acres. The subject property is on the northwest quadrant of the I-95-207 interchange with access off of Welcome Way and US Route 1 in the Mattaponi voting district. The proposed use is business, and the 2030 comprehensive plan designates this area for planned development. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of approximately 126.7 acres of land adjacent to I-95 from RP to B1 business. The subject property has frontage on Route 1 and is accessed from 207 via Welcome Way. The applicant would ultimately like approximately 1 million square feet of commercial space, 450,000 square feet of warehousing, and another 300,000 square feet of office and 200,000 square feet of retail within the development. Development is proposed in 2 phases. The applicant has no specific uses or plans at this time, so the rezoning application is speculative in nature. The subject property is split by a large segment of wetlands, which basically splits the property into an area served off of Route 1 and an area that will be served either off of Welcome Way or through the Union Bankshares Corporate Office Center. In reviewing the application, VDOT had concerns about access through Welcome Way. The current geometric design standards of the intersection prohibit large tractor trailers from efficiently and effectively utilizing Welcome Way for access. Recognizing these concerns and the cumulative impact of development, the applicant has proffered traffic impact analysis with each proposed development that would come in. It's a similar concept that we use with Mr. Shia's rezoning on the east side of 95 to address concerns about the cumulative effects of traffic impacts. There is also the overall limitation of the level of service C and the construction of necessary improvements to accommodate that level of service. Again, similar concept to what we use with the Shia rezoning to allow us to address the traffic concerns along the way. The applicant has submitted several plans for the board to consider. Again, this is a speculative rezoning. There is no firm user identified at this time. And therefore, they've identified several concepts for the potential development of their property. The applicant has also proffered out a number of uses, most of those commercially types of uses that the county either has found objectionable in the past, or there are uses that really do not lend themselves to going on that property. The Planning Commission first discussed this application at their August 7, 2013 work session and held their public hearing at the August 21, 2000 meeting. The general discussion at the work session related to the wetlands concerns and the ability to cross the wetlands, the layout of the development, as well as the traffic impacts and access to the property. There were no public speakers at the public hearing, and the Planning Commission unanimously voted to forward this application to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval. We do have the executed proffers related to this rezoning application, and I will address any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Fincham, is the applicant here by any chance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board members at this time have any questions of Mr. Fincham? Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Would the applicant like to make a statement? You don't have to. It just would be nice.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, and citizens, my name's Laura Pickett Pereira. I represent W&F Partners 2, who own the property under question here. And again, I just wanted to reiterate Mr. Fincham's information for you that we would like the rezoning to enhance the value of the property for potential development. There is nothing that we have at the present time as a firm concept to present to you. And so that's why the ones that you have are just speculative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before you leave, Ms. Pereira, Pickett or Congressman Pickett?
Yes, Owen Pickett's my father.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this rezoning? Is there anyone who would like to speak do I need to officially declare the public hearing open? I guess that would help. Public hearing is declared open. I have the flu. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this rezoning? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this rezoning? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this rezoning? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Mr. Fincham, would you come back, please? Board members, again, at this time, have any questions for Mr. Fincham or Ms. Pereira, who represented the applicant? Mr. Black?
I just have a quick one. Just in your estimation, I'm just looking at this map, a couple maps here. What percentage of this area is actually wetlands? I mean, if you were to break it down, is it 40%? I mean, it seems like a huge area of wetlands concern.
I would estimate, Mr. Black, probably 15% of the site, maybe.
Okay. All right.
And when I say that, I'm also including your Chesapeake Bay protection area. So I don't look just at the wetlands. I look at the buffers that you have to have to the wetlands. So.
Okay, that's all I have at this time.
Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fincham, is there a max number of lots that will be allowed on this? I mean, are we talking 10 or, because I've counted the number of parcels that are sort of numbered or lettered.
No, sir. These are concept plans only. And again, because of the speculative nature of the rezoning, they have not proffered a specific development plan. The limiting factor that is discussed was the level of service and the road impact. So whether you had two large users, such as perhaps a distribution type facility, or 10 smaller users, such as fast food restaurants, the trip generation and the level of service was the method that was discussed with the Planning Commission to I guess, regulate the amount of development.
In regards to the First Union Market access to this property, would that, I know it goes back to their facility, how would that access just the one end of these lots, and would that be the only access off of Route 1?
When we met with the applicants and their representatives to discuss this, we have not actually talked to Union First Market about the access, although we did talk to one of the representatives who is familiar with Union First Market. This does not obligate them to go through that property. Okay. But it's an option relative to Welcome Way and the design standards that we know we have with Welcome Way at the current traffic signal there. In lieu of trying to mitigate or address design issues there, an alternative alignment or access through the Union Bankshares Corporate Center would allow another means of ingress and egress for those lots that might otherwise be served by Welcome Way. So what we were trying to do is give some flexibility as to how to address the level of service issue and the design issues.
I just wasn't sure if Union First Market had been talked to about this or not, since we...
We did not talk directly to them, no, sir. It's simply an option, and those discussions would be entirely between this landowner and Union First Market.
Okay. Is there, and I guess the last is what my most concern is, entrances to the property. Is there a limitation to the number of entrances from Route 1?
There's actually a limitation in our zoning ordinance under the highway corridor regs. But yes, in terms of if I recall correctly, there is a maximum of 3 entrances off of Route 1 that would be allowed.
Okay.
And again, understanding there is a very long section of frontage on Route 1.
Right, I'm looking
yes,
at the map. I was just, so are we, they could have 3?
Yes, sir. I believe that's the number, yes, sir.
Is that something they'd have to come back if they want to do 3, or is that going to be by right with the rezoning?
They're subject to the limitations of the Highway Corridor Overlay District, which sets minimum standards between your entrances. So they would be limited by the HCOD as to the maximum number of units they have. And if I recall correctly, based upon the frontage, that would be 3, Mr. Seeley.
I guess that's my only concern, is I just know that Route 1 right now is not got a bunch of entrances, and I guess what I'd like to see is us try to consolidate or coalesce around as few as possible.
Yes, sir, I agree. Our ordinance, our HCOD regulations are designed specifically to minimize the multiple access points onto our major thoroughfares.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Fincham.
Fincham. Yeah, I'm just lost it. I was reading something and...
I'm not the only one with the flu.
You are not.
Now, Mr. Fincham, they could always come back and apply for some sort of deviation from the Highway Corridor Overlay District.
They could apply for an exception to the HCOD regulations that would be subject to a public hearing process and approval by the appropriate body, yes, sir.
But I mean, if their speculative development came up to something that was so fantastic it needed 4 entrances, they would have that option. Should it go through the Planning Commission and the board successfully, they'd still have that option.
Yes, sir. It will. Yes, by ordinance, they can apply for a special exception.
Right.
And at that time, we would get a revised traffic impact analysis to determine how special that application really was. Yes, sir.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure they had as many options as possible. Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Fincham, in reality, this property is being dressed up to make it more marketable, basically, is what they'd like to do.
It's being rezoned to make it more marketable. Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we're beating around the bush, that's all it is. And
yes, sir.
We're making it more than what it is. Anything they do has to go before our staff in terms of meeting zone ordinance, so to me, it's a no-brainer.
And they proffered out most of the things that we would find objectionable. Mr. Akers, questions?
Yeah, when it comes to Welcome Way, and I'll agree with that, what's been said about Welcome Way, it's that curve, but there's nothing in there that talks in terms of what they will agree to do in order to make Market Way accessible, if you will, for truck traffic and what have you. It may be that if, let's say, for instance, the distribution center goes in, I'm not sure whether the company would want to get there as quick as they could going through Market Way, Welcome Way, or going Route 1. But there's nothing in here that addresses that, as far as...
There's nothing that addresses specific improvements. That's correct, Mr. Akers. There is a proffer that speaks to the construction of the necessary or required improvements to maintain a level of service C.
That's good enough. I just wanted to make sure that was there.
Mr. Taylor? I don't know. Okay. Mr. Fincham, just to make sure, do you have a copy of the maps we have? I just wanted to make sure I'm seeing the right thing on the map, but it does look like there's a lake or something in the middle of it.
There is an old shallow lake on the property, yes, sir. If you remember, there used to be a travel campground there. This is that property, yes, sir.
Okay. And the rest of it is, for the most part, wooded, right?
Wooded, cut over.
Okay. The one thing I didn't see, and it could just be me, but you know we have a few speculative areas or speculative projects in the area. Ms. Ferreira comes to us with a great deal of credibility because Congressman Pickett was responsible for the Pendleton project, so your family pretty much does what they say they're going to do, so we appreciate that. The one thing that I need to look at to make sure we protect the area is there are no clear-cut concessions in this particular application. In other words, we could make this, we could approve this rezoning, and tomorrow there's bulldozers in there knocking all the trees down, and which is what they'd probably want to sell the property or to market the property, but we may have a empty lot for 5 years before something happens. So how do we remedy that situation?
By our ordinance, they have to submit, they could go in and do their selective thinning. They could timber the stands of timber that are present. They cannot actually put a shovel to the ground and disturb more than 2,500 square feet. They cannot actually put a shovel to the ground without a site plan. So they would have to go to the expense of actually engineering a site plan in order to get a land disturbance permit. Under our new regulations that we are facing, that will also start triggering the stormwater management permits at the state and federal level, depending on the size of the amount of activity. So there's a lot of expense that would have to be done to get your engineered site plan in order to actually get a land disturbing permit and clear the property.
Okay, they've got unlimited money, hypothetically. So they do all that, they come in, not tomorrow, week after next, clear the property, and it sits for 5 years with, you know what the other property looks like, so I don't need to explain it. So.
Yes, and they had a site plan, unfortunately.
Right. So I thought we had a new ordinance or something that said you had to do something within a year after you've disturbed the land. Right?
Yeah, that would actually be a separate set of regulations that we are working on, yes, sir.
That's the county said we're working on,
yes,
so
sir.
They're not enforced yet.
No, but upon adoption, they would be in force and effect.
Immediately?
Yes, sir.
Retroactively without any grandfathering?
There's no development application pending or that would be approved. They have the underlying zoning. They're still subject to the development regulations.
Right.
As they go forward.
And yes, not that I believe this would happen with this particular applicant, I just need to ask those questions to make sure it doesn't happen. Okay, I don't believe it would happen. So we are basically going to rezone this property, or the request is to rezone this property for the potential business impact for the county, which we'd love to see happen. Okay, that being said, since it's in the Mattaponi district, I sure would appreciate a motion to approve it.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Black. to approve